there's discrepancy every day in IT. One company would do A and another B, and they would not agree, right? What is the right choice to make? So if you're running a business and you have 100 million in IT spend and you need to increase productivity and decrease cost, you make choices. And I think one of the issues around that is, or what Red Hat is trying to address, is to make sure that the choices that are being made are long-lasting, make sense in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. I think a lot of the businesses today going into cloud, looking at SaaS and PaaS and outsourcing IT, they're doing it because it's a quick way to save money. Right? It's a quick way to make.
It looks like a quick way to save.
No, or at least
I disagree, and I think that was the point you were making. Is the value case is actually created out of this, although it looks appealing up front. When you peel back the onion from this thing, and you realize that these things are all unbundled, and when I have to put these things all together, the cost of this is not really as appealing anymore. That was the point I was trying to make this morning about just migrating to cloud is usually not enough. There has to be some business value in it as well. What is it that you're adding? Are you adding the flexibility that didn't exist before, perhaps to expand for seasonal demand that you wouldn't require you to have that kind of infrastructure on premise? Are you adding a new business capability that allows you to take advantage of elasticity and finish computations faster that give you some type of advantage? Are you monetizing IoT in some part where you're maybe creating one of your applications and making them multi-tenant so that you can actually sell them, not just use them internally, but sell them? Those are the things that I think allow people to create a real business case around moving applications and business systems in the cloud. If you look at it just as a pure lift and shift to move things to cloud, the business case is not very good in many cases. For some clients it is, depending on what their cost structures are, but the business case a lot of times is not. It has to be more than that. There has to be some value delivered.
In the transition to new economic models, one aspect is evolving is with performance-based collaboration type of thing, which is young. But do you see opportunity to get a clean cut between responsibility and cost creating and take responsibility?
Share the risks, share the profits.
You actually contractually?
Well, if you
we've been doing that for years.
Performance-based is like together with your clients, you define performance expectation.
We go a step further. So we oftentimes will strike agreements which are actually gain share arrangements. Right. So we won't get paid unless or we only get paid a partial sum, unless they contract it. But the more, I'll be honest with you about this, and I see my colleague from ABN AMRO laughing, probably because one of our Accenture folks has talked to him about this. If I had a nickel for every time I talked to clients about a gain share arrangement, I'd be a rich man.
Right.
The number of times that we discuss this and the number of times we actually strike it in agreement is two very different things. We've done them, we just don't do them very, very often. And I actually think it's because it dawns on our clients over time as, wait a second, this actually could be really beneficial. And what happens, what are all the upside risks that are associated with it? It becomes very complex, you get under it. So it sounds appealing on the surface, the implementation of it is really hard.
Sure. And on the high aggregated levels, it's going to be more complicated.
I think there's going to be more of them, though. I really do. I think you're onto something there. I think there is going to be more of them. I mean, we're seeing more of our application management agreements. They will include more than just your mess for less. Mm-hmm. They want a better place at the end. Mm-hmm. They want you to rationalize their applications. They want to move things onto Linux as part of the outsourcing. So don't just maintain it, make it a better thing at the end of the day. That's what we're seeing a lot more of.
I mean, another way of looking at it is, okay, all of these enterprises are cost cutting. Well, that's a serious economic development. But you could also question, has IT been too expensive? Has IT been too experimental? Interesting to hear your views on this.
I've talked a lot. Let these guys talk. I
think it depends, but I think if you keep running IT as it is today, it will be too expensive. Nobody can afford, especially with the growth figures projected, look to the storage figures. You can, if you keep doing it as you do it today, it will be too expensive and you can go bankrupt even. So I think you need to do things differently. And I think one of the examples with our later announcement is our flex systems, where we put intelligence on top of the stack. Where you say, well, all the things will be automatically installation, your management task. It will be done via an intelligent way, and we copied a lot of the stuff out of Watson into this kind of solution. So you see our pure system family just announced. I think that's a way where you can reduce costs significant and put the savings to innovation and put the people to the other projects. I think that's the way we will go with the IT.
I agree with that. For instance, nowadays you have storage managers managing the storage area, and they will evolve into data managers, and hopefully later on in information managers, because in the end it's all about information, not about the storage. Mm-hmm. So the layer below it will more and more be automized and managed directly by some other parties, while the internal IT department is more about the business and about the IT itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'll add something to that.
Yeah, sure, thanks.
We have seen a renaissance of the expectation around innovation for IT. And I think that it comes from, there's only so much water that you can squeeze out of a rock over time. The costs, we're at the end of the line in terms of cost cutting. There's some additional things that can be done. But if corporate IT departments aren't thinking about how they bring value back to the business, they're going to be dinosaurs really quickly. So figure out a way to bring innovation to the business and to talk to them about competitive differentiation that they can offer through innovative technology. Figure out a way that they can monetize IT services they've been offering. I love the story of Amazon. So Amazon, great retailer, right? And I think it was 2007, and these guys in South Africa said, we're really good at this IT stuff. Maybe we could sell it. Mm-hmm. And now we have AWS. And I think that not every organization can adopt or embrace something like that, but IT needs to be thinking about them being a value creator to the business and not a cost center.
There seems to be like a contradiction, because on the one hand, it was said buying power and buying decision power goes to the marketing people, etc., on the one hand, and now you're saying on the other hand, marketing department, IT department should be leaning back and trying to bring and offer and almost sell their services. If they are kind of losing the services all over the place, one, what will they be selling yet? Secondly, what will be the overview and overall infrastructure?
I think they're complementary. I really do. I think that they coexist with each other.
In the best of worlds, they're probably complementary, but IT will be pulling its side of the sheet, and obviously all the rest of the company will put in all their own little pieces of the sheet, and so probably you will be finding out that you will be having 3 or 4 divisions having contracts with Salesforce, etc., and emptying. And on the other hand, still having a large mainframe somewhere, because obviously that's a core business. I'm scratching my head, and this once again seems to be not really apt to improve and optimize things. Mm-hmm. So if I sound kind of
so just to add a bit from my chair as a customer.
One of the suffering customers,
as a LifeRay. Curbing helps a lot. Just like 10 years ago, we had the first revolution. We had the EUC, where everybody.
What's curbing?
Melport. Keeping it small, keeping it in
governance, governance and managing the
and really making sure it doesn't go beyond its boundaries.
Wielding a big stick.
Maybe, yeah. In EUC computing was similar. You could do a lot with that, a lot quicker than you could do in your big mainframe or client server systems. But as soon as they needed interfaces, you needed one single golden truth of data, and wherever they were always beaten by the IT guys. So you just position them, well, for your first prototype, this kind of stuff, but if it becomes successful, if this is really what the business needs, we have to move it in phases to the big IT. With cloud, in our company we're doing exactly the same. They're very good for experiments, they're very good for sales-like of stuff with short time to market. In rare cases also pays, but not often. But they're not allowed to make interface with internal systems, or hardly. because once you start building that, you lose your time to market advantage, you lose your cost advantage or whatever. If they've proven successful, usually after about 2 years, we say, okay, now it's time to integrate it more and slowly move it to either a very stable IT managed cloud solution or something which becomes moving to the internal private cloud.
And you've already gone through that exercise successfully?
Yeah.
And
well,
the others weren't kicking and screaming? And
well, the end users, of course, keep on complaining, why can't we have both? Why can't we have the same quiet solution and single sign-on to your internal network and this and this? And it takes some time explaining to them that it's really not possible but to combine those two.
And they accept it?
Yes, in the end they have to accept it.
They have to.
Yeah, but also if you show them the details, if you show them why the internal IT is so complex and costly, in the end they understand. Also because often it was so complex because they didn't want off-the-shelf standard components, they wanted all tailored, specialized, etc.
Yeah.
That discussion starts again and again.
I would like to raise one more thing, which is mobility. The world is real time, all the time, every time. It's constant dialogue, and it's going to be worse in that respect. Easier for consumers, but for guys who control IT and security and cybercrime, that must be a real challenge. So I'm really interested in what you advise your clients in enterprise spaces, how to deal with this. Real time, all the time, with mobile devices, smartphones, I mean, you name it. It won't be long till we have IT devices in glasses. It's happening and it will be happening. So how do you, as vendors, talk to enterprises to deal with this? What do you have a program, steps, cautiousness, or?
Yes, we from Dell have an idea about it. In the old ways, you always had a storage manager, a server manager, a printer manager, a networking manager, all sitting as a king on top of their empire, deciding what will happen within their specific part of the IT department. This is the old way of thinking of running an IT, and it's no longer possible. When you look at all the new devices they are currently on the market and which will come on the market within 1 or 2 or 3 years, which I don't know which one are existing right now, and you want to implement it in your current IT situation, environment, infrastructure, it's no longer possible. If you want to add something into your infrastructure right now, it takes a very long time to test it, etc., etc. And before you know it, you're 3 or 6 months further down the road before you can implement it, and your colleagues from other companies are much faster and get ahead of you. So what you need to do is try to get rid of your fixed old infrastructure and go to a more virtual world, not only on servers, but also on networking and on storage. Easier methods of management, not 100 different kinds of tools, but maybe 1 or 2 or 3 tools to manage all your virtual assets, and where you can add new functionality or new applications very fast within a week and add more value to your internal and external customers.
Okay. So virtualization, basically.
Yeah.
So I'd like to comment that when we talk about security with our customers, I think cybercrime, as long as you're going to have some type of virtual application, e-commerce, any kind of business that's done where there are 2 ends to access, there's going to be crime, right? It's not stoppable. So one of the things that we're also dealing with is quickly identifying issues and actually working on them, because you cannot prevent. You know, as creative as the people are to try to prevent it, just as creative are the people that try to breach it. So a lot of it is around identifying security breaches, fixing security breaches very quickly, and dealing with the consequences fast and efficiently is one of the measures, at least we believe, that will help. Because there's no way to stop it. Right? I don't think there is.
So you're fast, you have to go identify, react, and then see how to fix it, or how to even.
Well, one of the things with open source is because the source code is open. I mean, it's the security approach is collaborative. So this really helps us, right? As soon as somebody's trying to break something, someone else is trying to fix it. So we have a lot more insight, at least in Linux and in our technology, on where the problems are. We have people working on, producing problems and fixing problems. But yeah, I think dealing with an issue efficiently is just as valuable as trying to stop it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. De Vit?
No, I think of course, it's first is awareness. I think especially the awareness, and it's raising now. You see it in the CEO study. It's now raising to the 6th, but I think it will be number 1 or 2 soon. But I think one of the real developments which can help cybercrime is real-time analytics. There's a lot of focus on our company. You see it in the acquisitions. You see the offerings we are putting in the market are around real-time analytics. And here again, I think open standards will help definitely, because now we see a lot of customers, they have the transaction, they move the data to another environment, do the batch transaction, hopefully within 24 hours, and then they will notify a particular event which is which could be a crime. But I think you need to do it on the transaction, and you need also here again technology, open standards for this. I think there's significant focus in IBM on what we're doing here. And I think Cornell is one of our acquisitions which help here. And again, old mainframe is, I think, again helping here, because I think it's a platform where you can do the transaction and the analytics in one run, because you have the scalability and the scalability for that. And you see, and I think facts are not lying. We sold 155 new Z clients in the last 6 quarters. New clients adopting the technology, the old mainframe. And especially one of the drivers is real-time analytics here.
That's 155 new
the last 6 quarters.
Where?
6 quarters.
Not in Amsterdam.
50% is in the growth countries.
1.5 years.
50% is in the major countries. And they're all 50-50 shared with large enterprises and high, small, medium business. Especially startups start with mainframe from scratch.
You have this somewhere on paper and in document, this information?
Yeah, no, it's public, it's open.
Because I've been asking IBM time and time again to tell us when they need new and are greenfield companies among them. I mean,
also
not previous.
155.
I've been asking this information for ages, never got it. Thank you.
Well, we've seen it, right? I've seen it. It's out there.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on mobility?
Please.
So, mobility is one of our fastest growing segments of Accenture's business, and I think that we've only just begun to see what was going to happen in mobility, and we probably can't even imagine how much it's going to change. The augmented reality that I spoke about briefly this morning offers new possibilities for safety, for delivery. The autonomous driving of cars to do delivery services, pizza or whatever, it's going to change so many things that we can't even think about today. One of the things that we're seeing as an immediate impact is this always-on, consumer mobility, mobile access. There's so many more users of services than there ever have been in the past. The back-end systems of our clients' IT departments, they're taxed heavily because of it. One of the things that Accenture's been doing a lot of work around is how do we take and untax those systems? So take a mainframe, for example, that's stressed because all of a sudden, because of new channels, they have 5 times the transactions that they ever had in the past. We've seen this like with insurance quoting and other things that have it's become so much easier to shop things around. And putting things like data acceleration layers and thinking about an architecture which is going to offload this inquiry, this rush of mobile transactions to insulate your back-end processing that you need to do to run your core enterprise, that is an important step that our clients are having to take in order to protect their business operations. That's just one dimension of the changes that I think that we can expect to see. We've only just begun. Then Google, we're getting a pair of Google Glass, I think in January.
Really? Okay.
We got big plans for that. Big plans. There's a client here in the Netherlands that we're going to be doing some work with almost right away.
Can you release names?
No.
And basically, on cybercrime issues, what do you really tell them? What do you advise them how to tackle this?
The best defense is a good offense. It's inevitable. And the best thing that you can do is to make sure that you detect and you can respond very quickly. Predictive analytics, I think, offers a new realm of ability to protect your enterprise and block.
And is there already a live case or experimental phase where you use augmented reality to deal with cybercrime?
Augmented reality to deal with cybercrime?
Or to make it easier, or to predict more, or follow faster?
So, I I don't think it's, no, I don't think we're really doing anything with that. We are doing some things with augmented reality and crime, but it has to do with closed circuit television and trying to do biometric matching, large scale matching, that type of thing of crime databases, but that's a very different matter.
Can you indicate what cybercrime will cost community and how it will raise the TCO of systems?
That's not my field of expertise.
Okay.
Ask university guys.
You had a question, sorry.
Actually, with regard to defense, best defense is offense. To an extent, is it much more a matter of having a differentiated defense, to the extent that perhaps you should be saying this data is truly important, we'll protect it, and the data on whatever mobile system you bring in, too bad, it's up to you to protect your own data, etc. And isn't so much more, rather than trying to defend everything, is it a matter of select what you want to defend?
I think you're walling off pieces of it. Yeah, I do. I mean, it's like what I was talking about with systems of record.
The point is it doable? Because they are open systems, and at that point it becomes a matter, is it doable to do that?
You know, it's a paradox, right? I was just mentioning this to my colleague here next to me with open source and security, right? Because we all want to be good contributors to open source, but the reality is that providing the actual source code may very well be the Achilles heel that we expose of how to circumvent security measures. So it's a dilemma, and it's a bit of a paradox, because we're very much fans and supporters of open source, but it's actually something that Accenture struggled with. We're not a software company, we're not a hardware company, we're an integrator. We have some software products. We've actually considered open sourcing a few. And our dilemma is, what's our liability of doing that? What if somebody finds a security hole in it and then takes advantage of that security hole for a client where we've already installed the software? There's some really complex issues to be dealt with there. And it creates some challenges for us, for sure.
That's security by obscurity, and that doesn't work. That's what the people of open source always say. Show it and you'll be safer.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that what you're saying is you're doing it security by obscurity, by not pointing, or at least allowing the code to be reviewed, and that's what the open source people say.
I think it's a paradox. I do. I really do.
I don't disagree with you, but Linux and SE Linux, as an example, are managed in a closed environment, right? So you always got to balance off what you see and what you do with what you see, right? So, I mean, if you put on a scale how many security breaches there are in Linux versus Windows, right? It's like 10,000 to 1. So Linux, there's something good happening with Linux.
Any other further questions? Important questions, key issues, top of mind things. You need to know stuff, because we have to close down in 5 to 10 minutes.
How do you persuade governments to use open source? How do you persuade governments to use open source?
They're the easiest ones to persuade. I'm just honest to God truth. They're the biggest adopters of open source that we have.
More questions?
Actually, getting back to big data, because that was one of the big topics, was kind of scratching my head, because once again it's kind of running before you can crawl or walk, because the signal to noise ratio will be probably lousy and getting lousier to begin with, if indeed the data sets are becoming bigger. And also, to a large extent, I do remember the good old days of the data warehouse and the data mining, and it came, and to an extent it went, because it actually didn't really pan out, it didn't really work out. So now I'm hearing all about big data, and this will be kind of the second coming of Christ with regard to data analysis, and kind of wondering to what extent I will be hearing in 2 years' time, oh yeah, good idea, but ultimately we really didn't get the value out of it. So to what extent is this kind of data warehousing squared all over again? Sorry, if I remember things of the good old days.
The challenge, I think, and I hope we have proven that with the Watson, that is the way how you get intelligence out of data, big data.
Excuse me, the problem is I just spoke with somebody from the development team of Watson, and indeed, one of the points I asked was indeed signal to ratio, signal to noise, and indeed his answer was, Watson, if there's an answer in the data set, it will find the answer. But it's not so much as about finding new developments and new things.
With a probability, but he finds an answer with a probability. But it's a different technology how you get information out of the data. Because you say, well, 80% of the data is insecure. You don't know how is the data. Is that the answer to your question?
The problem to an extent is if you have lots of data, you don't have necessary information, let alone that you're capable of acting upon the information. You've got to do the real sensible thing, as was the problem with data warehousing and data mining. But fast forward, I hear people talking about big data, and obviously there are advantages into it, but if I put myself in the position of a customer, I could be scratching my head and say, now, talk to me about value rendered in 2, 3, 5 years' time. Because otherwise, why would I be keeping a humongous amount of data? And also, it was mentioned, finding the right technology to go about it. I seem to recall having heard somebody say this morning it's not one size fits all, and how to figure out the right technology for the right application. Sorry, once again, running before you can crawl. Sorry to sound skeptical again.
There's a degree of maturity in that. One of the things that we've seen with big data that I think is becoming more pervasive now is a recognition that it's different. It's not relational technology. It's not rows and columns analysis anymore. It's trying to make sense of disparate collections of data that aren't necessarily correlated in ways that we've thought about previously. And the way that successful clients are doing this is actually creating a discipline around the context of a data scientist in the organization who is more of a mathematician than they are an IT technician. And I think that if we try to do big data the same way that we did data warehousing, we will get the result that we had with data warehousing, which is missed expectations. Big data is a different model, is a different way of appreciating and driving information out of the data that requires a very specialized expertise. And these data scientists, which we're trying to mint, and it's not easy, these data scientists are at the core of making that successful.
I did read the Harvard Business article about the sexiest job of the 21st century, and unfortunately that also kind of indicated that you simply can't find them because they're quite new birds. And
they're new birds. It's very hard to grow them too.
If you need them, you can't find them.
It's almost unique.
Just get them from India, China, whatever.
No, come on, be real.
No, this is a very difficult problem because for us, what we found makes a good scientist are the people that have usually an advanced physics or a math degree, because a lot of the algorithms that are used to analyze this data are extremely advanced in terms of how data is studied. So the world of SQL and looking at rows and columns and doing joins and things like that, it just doesn't work in this world. And it requires a different breed of individual who can think about that. And it's hard to grow them. There are not many of them.
I don't want to sound too skeptical and negative, but if you look at the financial world, we had the quants, people creating the financial models, and we see today what actually, in what kind of mess that was. The point is, the point is, if you look at what is...
No, really, what do you think about the financial crisis?
But the point is, if big data quite often is being pushed in the world of social media, etc., etc. The other respect, the data you get there is not so much financial or mathematically representable. To an extent, it's also sociological, psychological, etc. And if you kind of tell me that you're looking for data scientists out of the physics and mathematics world, obviously for the algorithms I can understand this, but trying to figure out and get the information you need to do some sensible work on it for information in the social media, or perhaps smart world, smart things, etc., smart meters, etc., smart grids. Once again, I absolutely believe in it, but show me how it can be done, because if I put myself in the position of a customer, I could be scratching my head and say, nice words, nice marketing, nice article in a publication, but show me.
So I think the marketing hype of that, what is the sort of the valley of despair that comes after that? Is that right? It's strong.